What up, Hoof listeners? We made it to week 18 of the NFL season. Welcome to the week 18 Sunday preview. Here we go, Anthony. Everything on the line for the Bills this week. A lot of other good games around the NFL, but this one definitely is the talk of the week. What do you think?
That's right. I think this is exactly where you do not want to be, right? The Bills have backed themselves into this corner, and really we've known this for weeks now, but it's almost, I would say over the last 4 weeks especially, this is best case scenario. You got Miami lost the game, you've won the 3, now you're going in with a chance to win the division. But on the season on a whole, this is an epic failure, right? You did not want to back yourself into a corner where it could be win or go home, right? This is not, this is week 18. It shouldn't be a playoff game already.
Right. Because they lost to the Jets week 1 with the 3 interceptions.
Correct. I mean,
Josh Allen. I mean, the Denver game, all these close games the Bills should have won, but just came up short. Basically, the Bills now add another playoff game to the slate here, right? And that's what it feels like. It's still a chance they get in if Jacksonville loses, right? If the Steelers lose, the Bills could still get in with a loss this week. But the pressure, right? Is so much pressure for the Bills themselves, right? Because that's a huge swing, from 2 to out of the playoffs. Never seen that before.
Yes. Epic swing. I mean, I don't know it can get any bigger than you're the 2 seed or you're out of the playoffs. That seems so crazy, but it's the reality that the Bills have found themselves in, playing a home game in the playoffs or multiple or going home, right? Like, that's insane to think about. But I think, the Bills got to capitalize on this opportunity. And again, we knew this weeks ago that it's win and advance every single week at this point. If you lost one, you wouldn't be in this position. You'd already be out. So going forward, I mean, it's going to be the same, right? You got 4 more games to the Super Bowl. And if you can do that, great. And you've swept. And that's exactly what we were talking about 4 weeks ago when the number was 8 for that, right? 8 weeks in a row, you got to win, and you're Super Bowl champs. But the Bills are capable of doing that, right? We've seen them go on stretch runs, and especially at the tail end of the season. Now, will the matchups work out in the playoffs? That's yet to be seen, right? We don't even know who's going to be in yet, and obviously the Bills will have to continue to perform. I almost said continue to perform at a top level, but really, in my mind, they haven't been performing at a top level at all.
Right.
Maybe the defense has exceeded expectations for sure, considering the injuries they've dealt with and everything going on this year on the defensive side. But the offense has been not great over the past few weeks, but the whole team has been in win in advance mode. Win in advance. Doesn't matter how ugly, win in advance. And if you could do that in the playoffs, that is all that matters. So a team could be the hottest team in the NFL, the Ravens, for example, and lose in the first round they play, right? So it's all about maintaining that win or go home attitude and living up to that. And I think the Bills can do that. It's win in advance, and they've known that for weeks, and they've continued to do that. And they have, I think, a lot of room to continue to get better, right? And that's what we're going to talk about, right? Like
it's been one of the weirdest seasons ever because we see this as a down year. The Bills have been really good the past few seasons, right? Very dominant. They won 13 games last year. The team was at 6-6, and everyone's saying, "Okay, are we going to fire McDermott? We made the OC change. We need to get weapons." I mean, the narrative is like negative, right? Okay, down year. Injuries cost us the season, right? But now you're sitting here, if you get the 2 seed, successful season, this team's resilient, and they deserve all of those narratives. But all of that, those 2 storylines change on this game. If you miss the playoffs, we go right back to that conversation of the Bills weren't good enough. The offense was trash. We got to get weapons. Should we keep McDermott? I mean, all those storylines pop back up. And I've just never seen it so volatile,
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's true. We're Bills fans. We've seen a lot, but what we haven't seen is a consistently good team all of a sudden not live up to expectation and what to do from there, right? Like, oh, okay, we were the best team ever, and now one of the top every year Super Bowl contender, and now all of a sudden we're not living up to that potential that we knew we had. necessarily. I mean, it's 10 wins. That's a good season, right? By any means. I had predicted 12 wins on the season for the Bills. If we win this game, it'll be 11 in the division. If we lose, it's 10 and hope you get in the playoffs, right? So it's not a failure of a season, but the disappointment of not living up to the potential that the NFL knows you have and
Right.
having to deal with the backlash of that every week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Josh Allen throws too many interceptions. I'm begging, and I'm going to put this out there on Twitter too. I'm begging after next week, please, those guys who are good with video, those of you who are good at video editing, Cover One has a few guys. There's a lot who do it on their own out there. Please compile every interception Josh Allen has thrown this season with context, and then let those a-holes over at ESPN and wherever else watch that and then say that that's Josh Allen's fault. Because we know as Bills fans, half of them, sure, they're stupid plays by Josh Allen that he shouldn't make, that he's trying to do too much, and he throws an interception. But the other chunk, a big chunk of at least half, are mistakes by the wide receivers, tipped balls, just heaving it up because, it's a punt basically at the end of the half or whatever. Those shouldn't count against him, and they have, right? But you have to hear that narrative all season long. Josh Allen's not who we think he was. He's not good enough. It's like, dude, watch the guy play. Watch the games. I'm so sick of that narrative, right? And, the offense, they can't score points. It's like, are you watching this team? Like, who are you watching? We just said they're not living up to potential, but to hear that narrative all year long, for the stories to come out, the negative story on Sean McDermott and why he should be fired, right? That Ty Dunn put out and everybody talked about on the world. So that was another one where it's just like, man, this is hard hit after like the nonsense, the outside noise. It just makes you want to focus and be like, okay, just get the football and play the football and get it done. They've been doing that since that stuff all happened.
Yeah, and Josh Allen does have a lot of interceptions. Not leading the league anymore. There was a time where he was leading the league in interceptions.
But to say that's the narrative is, he throws too many interceptions.
Yeah, well, that's true.
He's a risk taker. He does make bad decisions, but no more than any other quarterback. What's he, like one behind Patrick Mahomes this year in the last couple of years?
Currently at 16 interceptions on the year. That's 2 in the league behind Sam Howell. He's ahead of Pat Mahomes, Hurts at 14. Both are tied at 14 interceptions. And then there's a 4-way tie at 12 interceptions between Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Goff, and Tua. So again, he's got 4 more than the group. But again, they throw the ball a lot.
Context matters. Yeah.
and we all know this. Josh doesn't always play within the offense either. It's a lot of off script. It's a lot of playmaking by him. That's his strength. So interceptions will come with that.
But balance that with the touchdowns. Again, that's the narrative nobody wants to talk about. A couple of the guys did, right? We know Dan Orlovsky did. Who was the other one who backed him a lot? I forget. One of the non-ESPN guys did as well. But saying like, he's done enough that you should look at all of his numbers, right? The guy's scoring 40 touchdowns a year, 4 straight years. No quarterback has done that ever. One, Josh Allen. That is amazing to think about out of context. Forget the season, forget everything else. There is one quarterback in NFL history who has 40 total touchdowns in 4 straight seasons, and his name is Joshua Patrick Allen. That is amazing, and he deserves that. So it's a great accolade for him. And when you, again, put it back into context with the interceptions, the turnovers, when he's able to make plays and score points, we know what we get out of Josh Allen. We know he's going to make a bonehead play like that. But to try and summarize him as only that and slot him into this disappointment because he throws too many turnovers or never going to fix this problem, I don't care. Like, I want Josh Allen to play like Josh Allen. And that is fine with me. We all know that. We as Bills fans take the good with the bad and hope that we limit the bad, right? And he's been able to do that overall. He's improved basically every season, except this one. I would say he's kind of leveled out more and maybe taken a slight step back. But it's who he is. And, he's way better than people. He should be in the MVP conversation because without him, most valuable player. The other thing with that term is it gets thrown around and people say, it should be the one who leads in the most stats. Well, Josh Allen has done that a couple of times. And there were, Aaron Rodgers beat him out the one year, his best season statistically. And then there was, you give it to the guy who is the most valuable to his team. Well, that's where I would make the argument. That's always Josh Allen. You take Josh Allen away, this team's not doing anything well, right? And yet, they want to, again,
And
write
right,
that
and that's a
narrative.
good point, because if you take what you said, it's Tyreek Hill needs to be in the conversation as well, right?
Yes.
He's the most valuable player on the Dolphins, in my opinion. And the
And he's
MVP
there?
has changed over the years. It's no longer like, okay, the actual most valuable player will win. It's the quarterback with the best record. As soon as the Baltimore Ravens win last week versus Miami, it's instantly Lamar Jackson overnight, just because they got the 1 seed, right? And Lamar's having a good year, no doubt. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Lamar, but there's a lot of talent on the team, right? They're balanced all the way through. So, and Lamar still might win it if you did it, did an analysis to say actually who is the most valuable player for their team. Lamar still might win, but that analysis really doesn't seem to happen anymore. Just that, this team has the best record. Okay, they have a quarterback that's playing well. Give it to that person. I mean, we were talking about Brock Purdy for a while.
Yeah,
which he's having a great year, but we all know it's the San Francisco
Christian
team.
McCaffrey. Yeah, McCaffrey is the MVP of that team.
Right.
And I would agree with the Tyreek Hill for the Dolphins. I mean, I think if he had stayed healthy, he would be in that conversation without a doubt, and probably be offensive player of the year at the least, because he was on track for that 2,000-yard unbelievable mark, and lighting it up week after week. It's like, how does that he's their best weapon, and he still does well. Now, the guys around him were healthy too. Waddle, who's now injured as well, takes some of the heat off. You can't double cover Tyreek Hill all the time. He's going to break you down the field speed, and then Waddle's right there next to him. You pick your poison, kind of. But now...
Yeah, they're the best tandem in the league, I think. No doubt.
And with the numbers drop, yeah, absolutely. And now with the numbers drop, he's not going to be MVP and maybe not Offensive Player of the Year, depending on how that works out. And it is skewed toward being a quarterback award, and everybody knows that now, because although the quarterback is very involved, the record doesn't rely on the quarterback, right? So we'll see.
I think it's
what the voters think.
It's Lamar Jackson. There's no doubt in my mind that
the
MVP is.
Ultimately,
with what the system is now and what we know about it.
Ultimately, my conclusion from that is that there's still a national media bias against the Bills. I thought that was gone, dead and buried with Josh Allen, with the emergence of Josh Allen, but it still seems like people are like, oh no, Buffalo, no, they're not good enough. Oh, they were 6-6, and so were all these other teams. Even the Ravens have one more win than the Bills if they lose and the Bills win this week. I mean, come on, that shouldn't be the determining factor. And again, you could argue, the Ravens had an easier path. All 3 quarterbacks in their division out, and down the stretch, making things a lot easier for them in those tough divisional games. And Buffalo didn't have that kind of luck, right? And our injuries definitely added up down the stretch, even early on for this team. So it
matters who you play. No,
absolutely. Context again matters, and it's there's still that bias against Buffalo for some reason. And I thought, again, that would be dead and gone by now. I think until we win it all, that's going to be the narrative. It's just like, oh, they're Buffalo, and I'm sick of hearing that. I know all of us are, right? Like, give us some respect, watch some football, actually watch this team play, and you'll know something about these guys. All the way in the offseason, talking about Diggs too, right? Like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Watch this football team, get to know these guys, and then say, oh, it's all Diggs is, this guy. No, that's his narrative, but that's not who he is. That's
you got to stop watching ESPN.
Yeah, exactly.
Until you've been watching ESPN today.
But it's all the national media, right? It's not just ESPN. They're just one of the biggest. But most of the national media, that Diggs story, they blew it completely out of proportion in the offseason. And all the way through the season, it's just been continued snowballing effect. I hope that the team uses that in their favor, right? That they're like, hey, everybody's counting us out. They still think we're just weary, dreary Buffalo, whatever. And then come in and punch these teams in the face and win a Super Bowl, right? And that's going to be ultimately what takes the monkey off your back.
Yeah, and I think it's the Bills are, again, like we already talked about, highs and lows this year, right? They win by a lot, and then they lose close. They've lost, close games, but when they win by a lot. That really hasn't been true the last few weeks with the Chargers and the Patriots. It's been pretty ugly, right? Honestly.
Yes.
But the team steps up. The defense has been stepping up. Ed Oliver has made a lot of great plays this year. AJ Epinesa has made a lot of great plays. James Cook has emerged. So they found ways to win these games. But yeah, the offense really has really had a down year overall, I think is what turns people off from the MVP conversation. But let's get into the game here, right? Biggest game of the year for Buffalo. Going down to Miami. Buffalo's -3 going into Miami for the last game of the week. And what do you think here? What are we thinking? I mean, I know the Dolphins, they coming off that huge loss where they really got beat up, right? They got a ton of people on the injury report.
Yes.
They lose Bradley Chubb, which is crucial for them. Talked about Waddle, Xavier Howard looking like he's not going to go. So that just hurts when you get to the playoffs and you're banged up like that. But yeah, what's your initial
on the injury report too? Mostert was expected to go this week, and then he was out, right? And he's had a phenomenal season for them. The Bills kind of shut him down too in their first matchup. But still, your key running back, your number one running back is out. Now they have A-Chain, or however he's pronouncing it now, right? As a very viable guy to have as next up. And so it's not like the Bills can write off the run game. But those injuries are key players, key points, right? And a couple of them we know are already out, most likely in Howard and Chubb. The other two, questionable, we'll see. Probably going to be game time decisions, so we really won't know. And then you got Tyreek Hill, who's still injured himself, right? That foot injury. He's playing through it, but he's clearly not 100%. He's been able to be productive through that, but not 100%. So I think that the line makes sense to me objectively, not as a Bills fan, but yes, the Bills should be favorite. They're coming in to a place where they've historically played very well in Miami. I heard that they're expecting the stadium to be at least half Bills fans, which is phenomenal. I love that. I usually go to this game every year. My uncle lives down in Fort Lauderdale. The only reason I'm not this year is because I had the birth of my child at, a few weeks ago. So the newborn, at home, I can't quite leave for a weekend to, go down and go to the
and I can remember, like, historically, they always play the Dolphins the last week, it seems like. And a lot of times it doesn't mean anything, right? But this year it's like the biggest game of the year. So you're missing out big time this year. But
I know, and we almost bought tickets. I still almost bought tickets and booked my flight. But, again, I voted against that, wanting to be home with my newborn and my wife and make sure everything's going well.
Good answer.
It's, it does ultimately come down to that. If this were a Super Bowl or something, maybe if it was due in February, I'd be like, well, I've got my flight.
See ya.
But so for a game like this, it's still a huge game. I still know a ton of people that are going. I've already seen pictures of people flying down and everybody doing the gatherings, the typical Bills bar down there.
It should be a great atmosphere down there.
It was the first Bills game I went to 2 years ago. It was the first away game I've been to where there were more Bills fans tailgating and at the game than there were home team fans, even though, there's always a lot of Bills fans, and I've been to many, many stadiums, but that was the first where the Bills fans clearly outnumbered them. And
was that last year?
No, 2 years ago.
2 years
so it would have been, maybe even 3. It would have been Tua's rookie year.
Okay. Were they competitive that year or they had
No, they were done. They were not very good, right?
Yeah,
they were not very good. And the Bills were, so it was a pretty lopsided game, and tickets were pretty cheap.
I think for this one, Dolphins fans will show up.
Oh, definitely. And especially now. You
might have a lot of Bills fans. Bills fans travel well, especially in January. It's nice to go down to Florida and get out of the cold weather and the darkness, right? So
take me there.
Yeah, that's an easy sell. But huge game for the Bills. Does anything scare you about Miami? I mean, it's the same storyline. We seen them beat a good team. They beat Dallas, but as we talked about, Dallas is a play away from being on a 3-game losing streak here. The Bills beat the socks off them. The Cowboys almost dropped one to Detroit.
They should have.
Miami did beat them in kind of a field goal game, so that we'll count it. It's a team with a winning record. They are a good team. Outside of that, it's still the same story. Have they beat a good team this year? And the answer is no. Are you worried at all that Miami could come in here and prove everyone wrong and win this game?
Yes. I think it's legitimate to give them respect and to know that they're playing the same way the Bills are, right? They're thinking, okay, everybody's counting us out. They just said, oh, they crowned us champs in week whatever it was 10, and now here it is week 18, and we're playing for our division, the division that everybody gave us already, and we have to prove, even if this game didn't matter for Miami, I think they still would have played it well. They might not have played the starters the whole game, but they would have played a lot because it's against Buffalo, and you want to play a division rival like this who has owned you, right? This isn't like a division rival, you go back and forth. No, the Bills have owned Miami over the last, decade or so. And now it's an environment where Miami would want to beat the Bills that much more. So this coming in now, you already know you're getting their best because their division is on the line, and it's your biggest opponent, right? Like, they have more animosity toward the Bills than the Bills do toward Miami. Josh Allen's going down to Miami smiling because he loves playing Miami, right? He just always seems to do very well versus Miami. So, and they're angry, they're ready, right? So you have to be worried about that. Yeah, you have to know that they're still capable of being a team that can run on all cylinders, get everything clicking the right way, and beat you, right? And that would be worst case scenario for the Bills. And I think as a Bills fan, if you're not a little bit nervous for this game, if you don't admit that you're nervous for this game, I think you're crazy, right? We're Bills fans. We've seen it all happen before, right? So it wouldn't surprise anybody, I think, if that did happen. But
this does have a feeling of like, this is how the Bills would do it, right? We're going to get close. We have the 2 seed on the line, and we're going to lose by 3 because of the play.
It would not be like, oh my God, this is world-breaking news. No, that could happen because we're Bills fans and we know it can. And this team is that good that we need to respect them. This isn't some crappy, team coming in that, the Bills should dominate and they end up losing. No, this is a team that is legit, that is a playoff team already, and, is going to be a contender going into the playoffs, I think, depending on their overall health, obviously. But you have to respect them. You have to know they can beat you. You have to play your best. If you focus on your game and limit mistakes and that kind of thing, you're going to win, right? The Bills should win. The Bills should beat Miami under these conditions, given that Miami is pretty banged up, how they play against Miami, the way
they matched up last time, right?
Just matchup for matchup, right? The Bills have actually done a good job of limiting Tyreek Hill, which was a surprise to me. I learned that from Joe Marino this week. I was like, what? 70 yards or less in every appearance with the Bills? That's surprising because we know that Kansas City did very well, but
they get there to the quarterback, right? I think that's the big thing is they put a lot of pressure on Tua, so he needs to get rid of the ball really fast. That's kind of been what I've noticed from, watching the Bills play Miami. But again, it's Miami hasn't won the division since 2008. It's all there for them. The team's going to be dialed in.
Yes.
Even like you said, the depth of the team's even really good. They have speed everywhere, right? Waddle's out. Okay, we have Hill. Mostert's out. Okay, we have A-Chain. Okay, Xavier Howard's out. Well, you have Jalen Ramsey, who will likely follow Stephon Diggs. Right, so they have answers. We'll see how the pass rush turns out. I know Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb being out is huge for Miami, right? Really a great tandem of edge players for Miami. Yeah, and that's going to hurt. But
they do have, they have what? Christian Wilkins is their, probably the next guy up, right? And he's a threat too. That's not somebody you can just, nobody, right? No, you're going to get pressure from those guys, and it's certainly an easier task than their star number two guys who are down in Chubb and Phillips. So it's a matter of contain, right? The Bills have to play well. There's no doubt about it. The offensive line interior last week got beat up a lot, right? So they have to play well, and there's, I think, given matchup for matchup is why I think the Bills need to win this game. Because matchup for matchup, it's favoring the Bills. The offensive line for the Bills versus the defensive line for Miami favors the Bills, in my mind. The matchups with the wide receivers, given that Xavier Howard is out, favors the Bills, in my mind, right? The
Eli running back to start there, right?
Exactly, right? So now, if you look at the other side of the ball, defensively, our pressure, we need to be able to bring pressure on Tua, right? That's going to be a key factor too. This swing and miss defense has been a little too heavy for me in recent weeks, where it's, even when they do get pressure, it's like, oh, one guy missed, oh, two guys missed. And this is against, two inferior quarterbacks. Now you're going against Tua, who's faster and quicker at getting the ball out than those
accurate,
two.
right?
Yeah, so you really got to be on your A game when it comes to that pressure. And obviously the coverage has been a strength for the Bills, I would say, over the past few weeks. However, it has been a little bit vanilla at times, right? Again, it looked like guys were wide open for Stick. It looked like guys were wide open for Zappy at times. And you can't do that versus Tua, especially with guys like Hill, because he's gone. You're not catching him, right? And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But to me, that favors the D-line matchup versus the O-line matchup. Miami's banged up on the O-line as well, so that favors the Bills, even though we're not at full strength there. Having Daquan Jones back, I think, is huge in this game. So ultimately, it all adds up in the favor of the Bills in my mind. So that's why the Bills are favored in Vegas too here, -3, which is really a 6-point swing, because home team usually gets a 3-point advantage there. And it's about where I would have it. A divisional game, 6 points makes sense.
Yeah, quite a few offensive linemen on the injury report for Miami.
Yes.
Austin Jackson, Robert Hunt, Liam Eichenberg, Lester Cotton, Terry Armstead, all limited practice. Looks like nobody didn't practice, but they were all limited.
Right. So still no clear image of how that's going to go, right? But the who is it? Their starting center, I think, is already out. He's
Eichenberg
out for the season, right? Is he out for the season, or is he practicing? No, he's a limited participant this week.
Limited.
So maybe. Who knows? So it's their exact combination is not likely to be their starting 5 that they would like, right? And even if it is, they're not likely to be at 100% for this game. So I think that is a big area where the Bills can capitalize, get that pressure on Tua, break through that offensive line, wear them down, and do what you need to do. But Miami is very good at those short, quick passes, right? And even without Waddle in the game and without Tyreek Hill being 100%, they do have some fast guys who can catch the ball. Cedric Wilson, right? That's kind of what he's known for.
Smythe,
Braxton Berrios,
Smythe involved a lot.
Smythe, they have been, and So it's, again, there's guys that you have to worry about if you bring too much pressure and over pursue or miss, that are going to be open for a 3-yard pass that turns into a big play because you brought pressure, right? Which means there's going to be space, obviously. So I think that's what the Bills need to try and avoid. Bring the pressure. Don't let it turn into a dink-donk big play game, right? And the offense, the Bills' offense, has to clean it up, right? We saw in the New England game, it was just sloppy, right? Incompletions, drop passes.
Well,
Josh
you
Allen
can't sustain drives, right? That's what comes to mind for me. Is in this game, keep Tyreek Hill off the field, right? That limits his opportunities, and to do that, you have to have long, sustaining drives. And watching the Bills last week, if they play like they did last week, there's no way they can do that, right? I mean, I would say that should be the plan if you can do it, but it seems like when the Bills get sloppy, that plan's out the window really quick, right? And then that's why they've been playing in a lot of close games. But we've seen the Bills offense explode, right? Philadelphia comes to mind. The last Miami game comes to mind. I mean, we've seen them, be one of the top offense, if not the top offense in the league on a week-to-week basis, right? I mean, it's so high and low this year, it's wild. But if they can play close to their capability, it's going to be a long day for Miami, right?
Just think, and if Josh Allen puts up the numbers that he has in the past versus Miami, 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns, does that put him back in the MVP conversation like we talked about earlier? Because if the Bills win and go on to win the division and take the number 2 seed, that's quite a statement from a team that everybody counted out so many weeks ago. And why are they in that position? Because of the play of somebody like Josh Allen, who has put numerous points on the board with his record of rushing touchdowns, record of rushing and throwing touchdowns in a game. I mean, he's definitely got the moxie to back that up, right? He's got whatever stat, whatever you want to look at, he would be in that conversation in my mind. But you got to get it done, right? If he goes off, right, 5 touchdowns, or the Bills end up scoring as many points as Baltimore did against Miami and looking that good, then, maybe there's a conversation to be had there in the minds of those who actually vote for these things. We already know he's our MVP, and we already know that ultimately this game is going to come down to him too. I'd like to see us get the running game going. James Cook, phenomenal season, Pro Bowler, by the way, James Cook, deservedly so. You still have to get him involved both in the pass and the run game. And I think that, as much as he is a playmaker this year and can be a difference maker for this team, ultimately it still goes through Josh Allen. And we know that, right? Like, he cannot have a bad game and let James Cook win it, right? I don't think that's going to happen. It has to be Josh Allen.
Yeah, I agree. And historically, the Bills have played well in primetime as well. So this getting moved to a primetime slot, I think bodes well for the Bills if you're looking at history, right? So it'll be a lot of fun. What are you thinking for score here?
Oh, that's a great question, because there's 2 scenarios I think could play out here, right? I think it could end up being a game where the Bills offense starts clicking and they score 34 points, let's say, right? So it'd be 34-17 Buffalo, and that would be ideal, right? The reverse of that is Buffalo makes mistakes, Miami's able to capitalize, and the game ends up being 21-20 Buffalo. And that's my worst case scenario, right? Like, I don't want it to come down to a final drive on offense or defense to have to go ahead or maintain the lead, right? The Bills have done that the last 2 weeks, and it's been painful against bad opponents, right? And we talked about how Miami hasn't played well against good teams. We know this Buffalo team is a good team. So I would prefer that first one. And that would be, I think, my unbiased opinion. Like, if I'm taking my Bills fandom out of it, that would be more of my scenario. 34-17 Buffalo. When you take the momentum and the situations into play, that would be my guess. As a Bills fan, I am panicking that it's going to be that 21-20 scenario. And no, it's going to come down to that. So I will stick to the first one and go 34-17 for the Bills.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is the Bills will know that if they lose to Miami, they'll be in the playoffs or not, right? So a little bit of a factor there. If it's not, I think there's some desperation kicks in, and I think they end up scoring a lot more points.
And we should mention that
I think 36-17 feels right to me. The 17 for Miami just feels right. They're banged up. They just don't really play well against Buffalo. Last year they did beat them, right, in that close game
at home.
But
I was there.
But again, the Dolphins really haven't played well against any good team this year, except for the one Dallas game, right? So I think that's the story. It's been the story of the whole season, and I think that's going to continue here. The Bills have been playing great on defense, had 4 turnovers last week. If Josh Allen can just play halfway decent football, I think they score a lot of points here.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Taking the bias away from it, which sounds weird. I'm taking the bias away. I'm giving the Bills more points and a bigger win. Yeah, because when you analyze it, I think that's ultimately where these 2 teams are at coming into this matchup. And, on the outside, as a Bills fan, my paranoia is a little bit higher. So.
Yes. But there is some added value for Miami to win the division, though. And maybe
Correct.
they come out and have the best game plan of all time. Maybe they had the best, week of practice of all time. I do believe it's a bounce-back league, and they got completely embarrassed last week. So, yeah, I mean, I expect them to come out and play hard. It's just how long will it last? Can they last 4 quarters?
We know McDaniels, he's bold and he's brave, and you gotta, he's not going to be, sitting on his hands and letting this happen. Let's put it that way, right? They're going to come out with every trick in the book that they have for this game, because it matters that much to them too. And I just don't know that it's going to be enough. Ultimately, if you compare coach versus coach, I'll take McDermott and his experience over the mind of a younger, less experienced coach. So even though we've talked about McDermott's failure in big games and all of that, this is a different scenario in my mind
Sure.
than some of those other cases.
And the one thing about McDermott, his team's always ready to play in important
Yes.
games, right? That's been true. You could argue maybe the Cincinnati game last year was a game where they weren't ready to play.
Mhm.
But outside of that, I can't think of too many examples where the Bills didn't give a good effort and came up short in the end. If you want to look at the losses. But I mean, the past 3-4 seasons, they've just been great in playoff games. They've been great when it matters. And this is going to be one of those moments where you have to play great football, right? It's a playoff game. This will be a playoff atmosphere. And I think the Bills will be ready. All right. Any thoughts? Or are we moving on?
I think that's it. Just that the most likely scenario, as we're going to go through here when we make our picks, is that this will be winning in, losing out for Buffalo, right? And that's how the NFL wants it to play out, because that makes it an even bigger, more prime time, more must.
Why is it our team though? Like, why can't we lose and get 7? Right? Like, come on, get the 7 seed.
Hey, yeah.
Why does our team have the most complex playoff scenario?
2 to 8, just like that.
Yeah. It's because they lost to the Jets in week 1.
It is.
Anyway,
I mean, you put yourself in the situation.
All right. First game on the Saturday slate, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. Pittsburgh -4 at Baltimore. Lamar Jackson not playing in this game. Mason Rudolph gets to start again for Pittsburgh. This is one of those ones that matter. Pittsburgh, if they lose, the Bills get in. But also, I think there is a scenario where if Pittsburgh loses, the Steelers still get in the playoffs. But if they win, they're in, right?
Yes. So they want to win this game, and that's going to be important for them. They're going up against the divisional opponent, still one of the best rosters in football this year. Played pretty well. Even the backups played pretty well versus Miami at the end of that game. So, they were showing that they're not just some scrubs who are going to, kneel down and take a beating. Which I think is why this line is as close as it is. Pittsburgh's favored in Baltimore, but that's because they're going against backups. -4. This is a close call for me because I think 4 is the right number. I could see it being 20-24, right? And that would be in favor of Pittsburgh, right? So I'm going to take Baltimore with the points just because it could be a 3-point game, and I think that's more likely. And I'm still waiting for the fall back to reality of this Steelers offense, right? I don't think they are who they have been the past 2 weeks, scoring 30 points all of a sudden when they couldn't get a yard. They couldn't rush or pass for anything.
Right. They had a good running
Mason
game
Rudolph is your savior. I mean,
I don't know what changed for them, right? But going to Seattle and getting a win, I picked Seattle last week, and they shocked me, right? Because their offense kind of came alive, and you haven't seen that all season. So
exactly.
But let's not forget, Tyler Huntley and company almost knocked the Cincinnati Bengals out of the playoffs last year.
Yes,
came down to that. They reached across the end zone. It was short, got knocked out, and then I think it was Sam Hubbard.
Yeah, returned it,
the entire field, right?
Crazy.
Remember that game. So, Tyler Huntley can ball. It's not going to be an easy day for the Steelers, even with Baltimore's backups.
Yeah. And obviously we're rooting for Baltimore hardcore here.
Sure.
Like, come on, win. But and this is the Saturday game too. So we'll definitely know the results of this one before even going into the Sunday slate. Should still be a fun game to watch. Let's put it that way. I expect that this is still going to be a close game, even with the backups of the Ravens mostly playing out there.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to take the Steelers. I don't know if I mentioned that. You're taking Baltimore. I'm taking Pittsburgh.
With the points. Yeah. I think Baltimore to win.
They're getting in the playoffs. I mean, it's Mike Tomlin. I mean, I think if they played anything close to what they played last week, I think this is a win for the Steelers.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin once again, right? Like, what the hell is this guy?
Hey, the William and Mary program, man. I'm telling you.
Absolutely finds a way to win.
They're having a good year, right? Sean
3 weeks ago, we counted them out, and then boom. Yeah.
And offensive coordinator Joe Brady, William and Mary as well.
Yeah.
So,
there you go. Mm-hmm.
Hey. Gotta look at what's going on in that program, right? All right, the Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Houston -1.5 at Indy. Potential division winner game, A. B, the winner gets in the playoffs.
Yes.
Right? Loser does not. Loser does not get the playoffs. I don't believe there's a scenario.
Another seed swing here based on other results, right? Jacksonville still has to win the division.
Correct.
The Texans and Indy obviously still there if Jacksonville loses. So but if the winner of this game will definitely get the 7 seed. So it's like from 4 to 7, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's 6
you know,
or 7,
so
right?
yeah, I don't think they could. Can they be 6? Oh, if
I thought
Pittsburgh
Houston could be.
loses, right? If Pittsburgh
Right.
loses, Houston wins. They could
Yeah.
end up being 6 too. So
Right. Don't go down that rabbit hole. It's deep.
I know, right? This is crazy, right? Like, but likely scenario here, Pittsburgh wins, and I'm picking Houston to win here. Just playing better football right now. They got CJ Stroud back. That's the only time they looked like they were vulnerable is without him. And along with him, don't forget Nico Collins was injured, Dalton Schultz was injured. They had all of these injuries on offense, and that's when they looked more vulnerable. Now they got those guys back, and they looked a lot more dominant again. And they're getting everybody involved, right? My guy Brevin Jordan scored a touchdown last week, and this is
Devin Singletary, right?
Devin Singletary doing very well for them. Yeah, become their lead back, and I think Indy has been more of the team that I've been saying all along is a pretender because they've found a way. Kudos to them for being in it way down at the end of the season here and getting their chance. But they found a way to get in, and now it's what's going to happen next. They're facing a divisional opponent who is just an overall better team than them. CJ Stroud over Gardner Minshew all day long, right? All of the,
agree with that, yeah.
Playmakers in Texas way over,
right.
the playmakers at the Colts. So
we know this. It's a different gear when it's a playoff atmosphere, right?
Yes.
And this will absolutely have that atmosphere. And in those type of games, the quarterback's got to make plays, right? And this is where the gap between quarterback play starts to widen a little bit, right? And I think CJ Stroud has that. He's played in big games in college football, right? We've seen him play phenomenal this year, make a lot of plays with his arm. It feels more like Gardner Minshew is just kind of managing the offense and they're running the ball a lot, right? So there's an added dimension for Houston. They both teams play good defense. I think both teams can run the ball, but that added dimension of CJ Stroud, I think, is what puts the Houston Texans over the hump here.
Yes.
All right. Looks like we're in agreement on that one. All right. Moving on to Sunday. First one up. Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals. Cleveland's +7 at Cincinnati. Probably resting starters as well, right?
Likely, yes, right. So
Cleveland's locked into that 5 seed.
This is such a tough matchup because Cleveland's defense has just been playing all out all year. They're the best defense in the NFL this season, without a doubt, I think. And so even though they're going to Cincinnati and they're playing on the road, Cleveland is tough, man. And they can do things. And we've seen their backup quarterbacks continue to win games, right? They haven't been playing phenomenally, but they've been continuing to win games with them and relying on that run game. And again, run game, multiple guys getting involved. So it's not like, just because they're sitting forward or whoever else, the next man up isn't going to do it. Cincy, they were inconsistent down the stretch, which is why they find themselves where they are now. And I have to take Cleveland with the points.
Okay.
I hate games like this because it's, Cleveland doesn't care. They're going to sit on their couch and do nothing.
Well, you're going back to the offense from earlier in the season with Dorian Robinson. I think Joe Flacco probably rests, right?
Yes.
And we know that was ugly. It was hard to move the ball. They played in a lot of games that were like 12-7.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it'll be like one of those games, in my opinion.
Yes.
So 7's too much if you're doing that. I would pick Cincinnati to win, right? I think they do win. I like Joe Mixon, right? They don't have much to play for, but they're a good team that makes a lot of plays. But Cleveland, I just think will struggle to move the football. So I think it'll be a close game. And they play good defense, right? So I think it'll be another 13-7, something like that, right? That
there you go.
Right to me.
It does, yes. And that's why I'm taking Cleveland with the points as well. I do think Cincinnati ends up winning the game, but probably by 3 or something like that. So Cleveland with the points.
Another one in agreement on. Okay. All right. Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. Minnesota's +3.5 at Detroit.
Yeah.
What are we thinking on the Detroit Lions? Do they have anything to play for?
I don't think so anymore because they lost to Dallas, right? So the loss to Dallas put them 1 behind. So even if they win and Dallas loses, they're tied, but Dallas has the tiebreaker, right? So they are, I think, are they locked into the 3 seed then? Yeah, because
let's think about this. So we have Dallas, Detroit, and where's Philadelphia? Philadelphia are all 11-5. So if
Right, but
Dallas
Philly and Dallas,
and the Eagles lose, Detroit could have the 2 seed. But both Dallas and the Eagles have to lose.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, okay. So they are playing for some, and yeah. So okay, that
Which
tells
is,
you they are going to play everybody.
if we go back to that call in the Dallas Detroit game, I mean that had a huge swing.
Oh my
on
God,
the
way bigger
right?
than we thought, right? Because the
Right.
Eagles were supposed to have an
Exactly.
easy win versus Arizona,
Right.
and botched it, right? And because of
Right.
that,
And Detroit could be looking
it
at
could be
2
at the 1
seed
seed. Yeah,
locked
like
in,
it's
playing for the
nuts.
1. San Francisco would have to play this week to
Yes.
save the 1 seed, and then Detroit looking at 2 home playoff games, and that's a lot different, right?
Right.
That's
Huge swing on a stupid call by the refs, right? So it's unfortunate, but that's the NFL for you. You have to accept those bumps and bruises along the way and overcome them. And I think Detroit's the type of team that will.
and for the Vikings, they're eliminated.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yes, and that's they are. I thought they had like an outside chance if every other team lost and they won.
Well,
No?
there's 7-9. And there's 3 teams that are 8-8, but if let's say the Packers lose, they go to 8-9. Yeah, I guess, but they have the Packers would get in ahead of them, right? Because of the head-to-head.
Would they? Are they officially eliminated on NFL.com? I don't
I'm
know.
not sure if it's official, but I mean, odds
basically
are very, very low.
Right. They need all 3 wild card contending teams to lose and them to win. And that's not likely to happen given the matchups that we're going to go over here.
Yeah, I think they are eliminated.
It's tough. In a divisional game, you're always going to get the best from each other. But the Lions, after that game last week, knowing that they could move up still, I'm going to take Detroit at home -3.5. Minnesota's been one of my favorite teams all season long, but the injuries I think are too much for them to overcome at this point. Man, I want to pick Minnesota, but I'm going with Detroit -3.5.
Yeah. Got to go to Detroit. Detroit's mad, right? Their coach is mad, so I think the team plays angry.
Yeah.
But again, don't get your guys hurt in this game either, though, right?
Right.
You're at the 3. That's still pretty
Play
good.
smart.
I mean, you got the home playoff game. You got to get ready for that. It's going to be the biggest game in Detroit Lions history for this generation. Just make sure you don't get your quarterback or one of your star players hurt. But I think Detroit finds a way to win this one by, let's say 6 points.
There you go. Cover. That's all they need to do.
All right, the other important game for Bills fans, Jacksonville at Tennessee. Jacksonville -3.5 going down to Tennessee. If Jacksonville loses, the Bills will get in if they lose to Miami. So this one's important. The other thing would be if Jacksonville loses, they're eliminated. No, maybe not eliminated.
They can still be a playoff team.
They lose the division.
Correct. Yeah.
They could still get in the wild card, right? But it still would be a long shot.
Yes. So multiple scenarios
to lose too, right?
Correct. Yeah. And then again, the Bills are rooting for the Titans. We want the Titans to win. However, everything in this matchup is telling me the Jaguars are going to clinch the division with this game winner here. It's the Titans. We talked about going up against, these are 3 games. The NFL likes to put these divisional games at the end. Why? Because divisional games are always tough matchups. And even if a team is eliminated, they're going to want to play them tough. And this is the scenario again here. We talked about this with, if Miami had been clinched anything, they still would have been playing. Baltimore still wants to beat Pittsburgh. That Colts game, that's divisional game. These are all divisional games, right? So this is another one where even though Tennessee has not been playing well the last few games, and Jacksonville has faltered and then come back, this game should be competitive. Like the Titans are going to they have literally nothing to lose. I think they're going to, fake punts and 4th downs. They're going to do all that stuff because their whole goal in life right now is to beat the Jaguars and knock them out of the playoffs. And that would make their season basically.
Yeah.
And that's not where you want to be at home, right? Their Titans are playing at home.
Did you see the Mike Vrabel press conference clip this week?
No, I didn't.
One of the reporters asked him, you have anything to play for? And he basically, I'm not sure exactly what he asked, but Mike Vrabel's like, yeah, because losing fucking sucks. So
yes.
We're going to play to win because losing fucking sucks. Right?
Yeah, it's the NFL. You don't want to lose games.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to lose games. So I think all of that said, Jacksonville's a better team, right? Jacksonville experience-wise, running back, quarterback, you can go
Trevor
down the
Lawrence
line.
back for this game,
Yes.
right? That's huge.
I think that's going to be what puts them over the edge. I expect Jacksonville to win by a touchdown. So, unfortunately for the Bills, that's another outcome that is not in their favor, and it will be in or winning in or done. So,
Right.
I'm picking Jacksonville.
Tennessee just really they don't do a lot in the passing game, right? They can't protect Will Levis, which is really disrupting the passing game, if any, if there was one. And then the teams are keying on Derrick Henry, right? And Jacksonville knows this team better than most because they're in the same division. So it's going to be tough. But really, we've seen Jacksonville beat themselves. So really, what we're picking here is, will Jacksonville beat themselves?
Yes, exactly. And
that's the question.
They've proven that they can do that. Yeah,
they can do that for sure.
And put that on top of the fact that
Right.
this isn't just a Week 7 game for Tennessee. They're out of it. They, again, going for it on fourth down, doing whatever. It doesn't matter. You can fake a punt at your own 10-yard line in the first quarter because it doesn't matter. You are going for it. That's it, right? Like I think that mentality is going to be what could potentially give them the upset, but I just think Jacksonville's too good of a team to.
Well, I just think Trevor Lawrence will make a play, right?
Yes.
I think it's close. Almost want to take Tennessee with the points here, but I just think Trevor Lawrence is going to make one play that's going to put this game away. So I'll take Jacksonville, and let's say it's by 4 or more. That feels right. I think they get a touchdown late, and that's it. And look, the Titans they can't go shot for shot if it's that type of game, right? Their offense isn't good enough. I like Jacksonville. All right, New York Jets at the New England Patriots. Jets plus 1.5. Anything we got to pay attention to in this game is outside of draft pick.
Yeah, it's Bill Belichick's last game as
Bill
a
Belichick's
Patriots
last game.
coach.
Okay, there's a
there's a storyline there. There's something to play for those guys.
Okay, so you got to think,
but the draft pick is at stake, right? You got to stay.
Well, I was going to
New
say
England.
Bill Belichick's last game. This is a way for him to go out. They have a chance to get Drake May at 2, maybe 3, but we're going to go ahead and win a game, and we're going to have the 5th or 6th draft.
Yeah,
exactly. Get a quarterback, and they're going to be bad for 10 years.
Right. So if you're Buffalo, you want New England to win, and I think that honestly, I'm taking New England to win minus 1.5. I think they win the game. It's Bill Belichick's last game. These guys want to go out there and prove something, and say goodbye to their coach because I think they already know what's gonna go down, how this is gonna go down in the offseason. That against this Jets team, division rival, you're playing at home. New England is, so that's a lot of factors to me that go in New England's favor, and I think that the coach thing is ultimately what pushes them over the edge because this matchup is head-to-head, crappy team versus crappy team right now.
Yeah,
and New England, I think, has shown more and played harder in the last few weeks, and they need it more right now in terms of morale and what it can do for them. And the Jets simply don't, right? So the Jets are okay with losing, I think, and New England would be if it weren't for that coaching scenario.
Well, I think, if you look at last week, really the Patriots almost you could say outplayed the Bills, right? It just came down to the quarterback making stupid boneheaded decisions.
Turnovers, yeah.
Right. And that's going to be true here. The Patriots are playing a really good defense, and they might play a great game, but there's still that risk for stupid interceptions. But the difference is the Jets have a guy who makes stupid interceptions too, right? So I think I just think, again, this comes down to one play, and I just think New England's defense makes one more play than the Jets. So I'll take New England. All right, next one, NFC South, Atlanta Falcons going to New Orleans. New Orleans sitting at 8-8, and Falcons are at 7-9. I think the Buccaneers are at 8-8 as well. So
correct.
So they all need to win. Who has the head-to-head between the Bucs and the
I think Saints? If the Saints win, they will win the division, if I am not mistaken, because they beat the Bucs last week. So I believe
so the Bucs. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, so if
the Bucs Saints need to win,
Saints lose. Correct.
Saints win, they're in. If the Saints lose, the Falcons are now 8-8.
They could win the division.
Or they'll all be 8-9, right? And it comes down to the Bucks have to lose,
Correct.
right? So if they're
Yes.
all 8-9, the Falcons get in, right?
Correct.
So if the Bucks and the Saints lose, the Falcons get in. If the Saints win, they're in.
Yes. So again, this game, high level matchup for both teams. They're both competing to stay in the divisional race here. I think the Saints have more of a stranglehold on it, though. They've finally last week played a great game all around. They got the running game going. Pass game needs to do what it can do. Defense is still really good at times and good at baseline. So I think the Falcons have just failed to put it together on offense this year. The run game, the pass game, whatever you want to say, it's been bad, ugly, and worse, right? I don't think it's been good at all this season, really much at all. So in all 18 weeks. So I think that ultimately ends in the result that I thought it would at the beginning of the season, which is the Saints winning this division and coming out of what was looked at then and has played out to be a pretty weak division overall. So give me the Saints -3. I think they win it by 7-10. Even though Atlanta's still in it, this is, where it ends for them.
Yeah, I like the Saints in this one as well. It's at home. They have a quarterback, Derek Carr. I think he can, put together a good game for this one because there's so much on the line. Again, I like Atlanta's team, but I just don't trust their quarterback, right? So I got to go with Derek Carr in this one. And the Saints get in, right? That'd be huge for them, especially when Tampa Bay's really had a pretty good season overall. They had a huge losing streak, which is just a huge bummer for them because I think Tampa Bay's the better team, but the Saints look like the team that's going to get in here.
Agreed. Yep.
Speaking of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they go to Carolina. Tampa Bay -4.5 at Carolina.
Yeah.
What do you think of Carolina? Any chance at all?
No, I don't think so. I think well, they have a chance. They can play. We've seen them, play decent. Again, they're such a weird team in my mind. I haven't watched enough of their games fully to be able to analyze them and feel comfortable in a way to say like this is who they are. But they score points, they can make plays, and then all of a sudden they find themselves backed into a corner, right? Their defense makes plays too, but isn't good enough. So they've had building blocks and shown flashes, but not nearly enough flashes, right? So I ultimately put this game in the favor of Tampa Bay, who has put it together a lot more this season than Carolina has. But this game is in Carolina, and they do want to play upsetter, a division rival, all the same storylines there. It's just a matter of I don't know if they're strong enough to do that. So I'm going to take the Bucks at -4.5. I expect them to win by at least a touchdown. They're not a strong team in any sense, the Bucks. So they will. They're going to eke out this win. They're going to get it. It's a must-win game against an inferior opponent. You should beat them, no question. I think ultimately they win, but it's not going to matter for them because the Saints are going to win.
Yeah, and I think we were actually wrong on. So the head-to-head is the same for the Saints and the Bucks. I think they split. So the win percentage in the NFC goes to the Buccaneers.
Oh, really?
Yes, because it goes from head-to-head.
So if the Bucks win, they win the division.
Yes.
Can the Saints get in as a wild card in that scenario then? If they win?
Yes, they are in the hunt for a wild card. They need the Green Bay Packers and the Seahawks to lose.
Gotcha.
Yep, that's the scenario. So the Bucks win, they're in. That's what it looks like.
So they do control their own fate.
Yes, yeah, that's what's
interesting.
Like. Yeah, that one's a complex beast.
And they should win, right? Again, Carolina, Tampa Bay win, or a tie and a New Orleans loss. Yeah, so they only need to win to clinch the NFC South.
Right. So if Tampa Bay loses and the Falcons win, they could still get in that way by winning the division, right? So, okay, moving on. Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. Chicago +3 at Green Bay. Both of these teams have been playing pretty well, honestly.
Yeah, right?
Surprising.
This is another one where NFL is just like dancing this week, right? They are dancing at these matchups. They're like, hey, this is why we do this. This is why we make these divisional games, week 18 games. because I really like the way Chicago's playing right now. And unlike most teams in their scenario, we've talked about this a little bit on Tuesday. Their record is, how many wins do they have? 7? 6? They have 6 wins. And
Seven
and the
wins.
number 1 overall pick. That's got to be by far the most wins ever for a team that has the number 1 overall pick, as they acquired it from another team, Carolina. And they're just living on the high, right? They are playing their best football at the end of the season here. And even though they are statistically eliminated, they are playing well and beating teams that are still in it. And Green Bay, I feel like this is prime for them to get their butts beat by Chicago. Green Bay has been inconsistent. They played a good game, then a terrible game, then another good game. All year long, we've been saying that. You're hot and cold, hot and cold. And I don't think that holds up in a matchup like this, where Chicago, again, has nothing to lose. They're going to have that same mentality, and they've been playing well. Those guys on offense have been able to score points. Green Bay, I just don't trust them. I don't. I think they were pretenders as well. And ultimately, I think this game is going to cost them the playoffs. So I'll take Chicago to win. So I'm taking them with the points.
Okay, I'm actually going to go Green Bay. I think they had their best game of the year last week. Jordan Love looked like a real professional quarterback, and I think, that carries over to this week. They also get Aaron Jones back, key piece to their offense that I think they've been missing all year. Defense playing well. They really, in a high-stakes game versus Minnesota, they just made them look silly, right? So I think Green Bay's firing on all cylinders right now. This is a home game for Green Bay, and, Jordan Love's he's been doing this for a while now. Now it's time to play some meaningful football. I think he steps up to the plate here. So give me Green Bay. All right, Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. Denver plus 2.5 at Las Vegas. No Russell Wilson. Who are the starting quarterbacks for this one? Trivia question.
Simeon and
Not Simeon.
O'Connell. No, who do they have? Not Simeon. What's his name?
Surprised you knew O'Connell.
O'Connell, definitely Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, he's been playing every week. Yeah.
Yeah. So who is it? It's got to be who's
Stridham. Jason Stridham.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, trivia.
So yeah, I mean, it's still not exactly a barn burner of a game, but if you put these two teams against each other and how they've been playing, the Broncos did win last week, but I think this game being in Vegas, the Raiders are going to have an advantage. They still have been playing well. Their head coach has, to me, he's going to get a job somewhere, right? Like, he's the interim coach, but coaching these guys up, getting them to play much better football than the previous regime was. And I think, he ultimately gets a job. So give me the Raiders to win this game to end the season.
Yeah, I like the Raiders too. It's at home. Like you said, coach has been motivating the team. Team's been actually playing pretty well lately. So give me the Raiders.
Yeah, there was a fun stat from that game before you move on that I wanted to find, that they still have implications for playoff seeding, right? There is, if a certain scenario plays out, then the winner of this game will determine who gets in, even though they're both eliminated, which is crazy to think about, right? They're not in it, but that it comes down to strength of schedule. It must be that is, the matchup that could matter for that. And I think it's the scenario with Jacksonville and, the Colts and all that, where those teams, I couldn't find the exact scenario, but I know
that's
the case.
Jacksonville would have to lose because the Colts Texans, somebody has to win, right? So that's one. They would go up to the 4 seed, the Colts or the Texans. So then they must have a head-to-head win versus the Jaguars.
I just found it here, right? So
okay.
Here it is. Courtesy of Greg Tom Set, by the way. He said, most fun AFC scenario, Pittsburgh loses on Saturday, Jacksonville loses Sunday, and then it comes down to Denver versus Las Vegas. If Denver wins, Pittsburgh's in, Jacksonville's out. But if Las Vegas wins, Jacksonville's in, Pittsburgh's out. So it could be teams that do not care about the outcome are playing for the playoff fate of those two teams. Now, so that's obviously not likely.
Right.
We picked both Jacksonville and Pittsburgh to win. But if they both lose, it could totally change the outcome.
Interesting. I'd love to have the Raiders travel to Buffalo.
Woo. Yes, please.
Because that would be the scenario, right? If the 7 seed would go to the 2.
Yes.
So that would sounds great.
But
Sign me up.
the Raiders are eliminated though. They can't get
Oh, so it's Denver only. Okay. So Denver would travel to Buffalo.
No. They don't get in. They have they're both eliminated. But if Denver wins, Jacksonville gets in. Or sorry, if Denver wins, Pittsburgh gets in. If Las Vegas wins, Jacksonville gets in.
I see what you're saying.
So they are eliminated, but these two teams will control the fate of two other teams if both lose, which is unlikely, but still an interesting scenario for the weekend.
Oh, geez. Wild. All right, let's move on. Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants. Philadelphia -5.5 at the Giants.
Yeah.
Can the Giants pull the upset? I think is the question.
Certainly we saw the Eagles get upset last week, but I think that's what counts against the Giants, right, in this game is Philly just got punched in the mouth. So hopefully they're awake for this one, right? And I think that's likely to be the scenario. They now know they backed themselves into a corner, and this is basically, a must-win game for them, even though they've clinched the playoffs already. They want to beat the Giants and move themselves into a home playoff game rather than, a wild card berth. So, the Giants, inconsistent play. I think they've looked a little better on offense with Tyrod, but can they beat the Eagles at their strongest after getting punched in the mouth? Probably not. So I'll take the Eagles -5.5. I think they win by 10 points. Giants will play them tough and close, but Eagles are going to take it.
Yeah, and the Eagles have to win this to stop the press from getting into their business, because if you lose this one, now there's a lot of questions. Why is AJ Brown upset? Why is, this player upset? I mean, it could get real ugly for Philadelphia heading into the playoffs in a time where you're supposed to be playing your best football, right? So I think if they win this one, it solves everything. Those storylines get put to bed and they move on to the playoffs, right? So, I like Philadelphia as well. All right, Seattle at Arizona. Seahawks need this one, but Arizona coming off that huge win versus Philadelphia. The way Seattle's been playing, I don't think this is easy for them.
You're right. They had it in their grasp and then blew it last week versus Pittsburgh, really, I think. But ultimately, when you look at these two teams on paper or whatever you want to say, Seattle's a better team. Seattle has the better weapons. Seattle can do more. The Cardinals are limited. And to me, the factor that matters, the Cardinals had their Super Bowl last week. They had their moment. They did it. They beat a team that they never should have, that everybody said they couldn't. And now this week, the line is favoring more because of that, right? So it's only a 2.5 point line. I think the Seahawks win this game by at least 4 points in a 20-24 game if the Cardinals are able to keep it close, or the Seahawks run away with it. So I'm taking the Seahawks to win and get into the playoffs and really use this game as a stepping stone into the playoffs. It's a divisional opponent. They're going to play you tough, but they had their big win last week. Show them who you are and expose them for who they are as you move on. And that's how it should play out. We'll see, because the Cardinals obviously are playing well with Kyler Murray and able to make big splash plays, and that could affect the game. But ultimately, I have to stick with the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough sledding. However, Seattle coming off that embarrassing loss last week, I think Pete Carroll has them ready, and they'll play their best football, and I still think it's going to be tough for them. So I think Seattle wins by 3 here. And they still need a little help to get in the playoffs, I believe, right? They need a Green Bay loss or maybe a Rams, right? And that Rams 9-7 have the 5 seed, but Green Bay sitting at 8-8, and Seattle's 1 game out of the playoffs right now. They're the first team out. So they need a little help, but they got to get this win and to have a chance.
Yes, in my scenario, because I picked Green Bay to lose, Seattle would win and get in the playoffs.
Get in the playoffs. There you go. All right, Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Chargers. Kansas City +3.5 at the Chargers. Kansas City's resting players, right? That's been announced.
Yes.
So what are we thinking here? Easton Stick and company pull off the upset?
Yes. I'm taking the Chargers here -3.5. I just think Kansas City is at a point where, because their season hasn't been going well, I don't even think they're going to risk it with some of their other guys that might play, right? Like, oh, you're the backup? No, you sit down too. The practice squad guys going out there, and Stick and company. Well, they played a tough game versus Denver last week and looked terrible, but I think they're more than fully capable of beating a second string team, right? And I think that's ultimately how this is going to play out. Kansas City resting players. The Chargers will score enough points. It's not going to be a pretty game, I don't think, but 17-10 or something. I could see it being that score in favor of the Chargers. So give me the Chargers -3.5.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Chargers, okay, Easton Stick can make plays. We've seen him make a few plays here and there. Austin Eckler, I think, is the difference maker for the Chargers. And Chargers end their season on a high note, right? Interim coach, he finally gets a win. Give him one at least. And it is home for the Chargers as well. So I agree with you. I just don't think Kansas City's twos can carry the load in this game. So I like the Chargers as well. All right, LA Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. Rams +4 going to San Francisco. San Francisco's got it locked up. I haven't seen an announcement about benching their resting starters, but you got to think they do.
I mean, at least somewhat, right? This is a tough one, right? Because I don't think the Rams have anything to play for either, do they? Right? They've already locked up their position in the wild card.
Well, we'd have to look at head-to-head. They would be tied with a lot of teams if they
seeding,
lost.
yeah. So
we'd have to look.
No, they've clinched a playoff berth. They have clinched a berth.
They're in,
but their
but
seeding
6 versus 7. Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So it's either do you want to play Detroit or do you want to play Dallas?
Yeah. So because of that, I think that I'm going to take the Rams with the points because I expect San Francisco will not be, playing all of their starters. Yeah. So I do think, the Rams have also been playing really well the past few weeks. That's why they're in the playoffs now. I think this is one of the most unexpected playoff bursts of the season, really. So give me the Rams to win and +4. I mean, that's even better. So
yeah, I'll take the Rams as well. Matt Stafford wants to return to Detroit and beat them, and that would be the matchup, right? Playoff game for Detroit's first playoff game in a long time.
Ooh, that'd be tough.
And then Matt Stafford's going to come in there and try to beat them. So I think that's going to drive the team. That's a good selling point. So I think I like the Rams in this one as well to get them to that game. All right, last one here. The Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. Dallas is -13.5 at Washington. Washington is trying to get a quarterback in the draft. That's what they're doing right now. They've lost a ton of games in a row. Any chance Washington upsets Dallas?
Well, the line is 13.5. So, I mean, there's that chance anytime it's over 10, I'm raising an eyebrow. However, Dallas needs this game badly, right? And they need to make a statement. They barely lost or won against Detroit, should have lost. Now they are against an inferior opponent that, they should definitely dominate. They need to dominate. Their playoff seeding is still on the line. Their division is still on the line. So give me Dallas -13.5. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. But that always, with a line that big, you have to at least hesitate somewhat.
I agree. I like Dallas as well because they're such a different team at home that they're almost dependent on having home playoff games. If they want to make the Super Bowl, you got to give yourself the best chance to be at home during the playoffs. They have the opportunity to do that, because of a couple miracles went their way or a couple things went their way. Finish the job, right? And for the Washington Commanders, I'll say the same thing. You've lost 7 games in a row. You now have the number 2 pick. Finish the job. Right? Get the quarterback of the future, whoever that is, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix. You want to talk about that? But yeah, you're so close. Why win now if you're the Commanders? And I know that the players, all want to win and everything, but they lost 7 games in a row. And I thought the Commanders were a good team this year. I mean, we've seen them play some good games this year. But yeah, here at the end, I think you just finished the tank job, and Dallas has to have those home games. So I like Dallas in this one.
There you go.
All right. Last preview show of the year. Been a pleasure. Talking to everybody all season long. It's been a lot of fun. Be sure we'll still have a preview show next week. We'll be talking wild card games, then divisional, then the championship. We'll be sure to fill it up with some content, but it's
probably
been
some
lot of
fired
fun.
coach talk. You know, it's
Sure.
gonna Bloody
Definitely,
Monday is coming here. So.
Yes, that will probably be the Tuesday show.
Yes, yeah.
We'll recap all events from week 18. We go at 8:00 Tuesday and Thursday, so be sure to tune in. And also, we'll talk about our divisional. We'll actually have divisional winners next week, so we can go back and look at our predictions from the season.
Correct. Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, see how it all shook out. I'm pretty happy with it overall, but we'll see. We'll see when it all is said and done.
Yes.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Playoffs. This seems like it was just week 2, and now it's the playoffs. Look at that. It's how the NFL season goes. So you're live and die every week, and look forward to every Sunday. And before you know it, it's the last week of the season, and playoffs are starting. So. Hopefully we can carry that energy through all the way to the Super Bowl, but we'll be giving you the content here for sure. As always, yeah. Thanks for kicking it with us.